necessarily my primary topic, identifying eviction cases. I work more in predicting court decisions, and this is not necessarily what we're going to be doing here. But I'm going to start a little bit with the sort of background story of how we got there. Um, uh, you from
Oh, Masha, your
long
internet
before
connection is a little, Masha, your internet connection is a
okay,
little bit wobbly.
okay, that's not good.
We missed your last 20 seconds.
Okay, what I could ask you to do actually, which should help, is if people who are on camera, that they would actually turn off their camera for now while I'm sharing the screen. I think that will help a lot. Uh, I don't know if there are any, but yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, this is good.
Okay. So, so basically, what I was saying is that I know Michel Voss for a long time. And then we've, for a long time, since I'm working in predictive court decisions, we were discussing whether we could do something with predictive eviction cases. And what I knew is that him and the team are working around eviction, within evict and before evict, had around 600 cases collected for um, research in for eviction case law. So this was a sort of a good idea for a start to try predicting court decisions, and we did a few experiments. But um, for doing research that I'm doing, which involves machine learning, you really want to have as much data as possible. So and so I tried to talk to Misha about sort of how the data is collected, whether we can get some more somehow, and then of course, sort of what you hear every time is that um, how things are done in most legal research departments is that it's collected by research assistants, which is they generally do a great job, definitely on this project, but of course it's extremely time consuming. Um, so we started thinking towards, okay, can we automate this process at least to some degree? So this is basically where the project has started. This specific project I'll mention straight away. We've done with Michel Voss, who you may know, a lawyer, Martijn Bieling, who is also a computational linguist, and Simon Dum, who's a very talented research assistant, also from computational linguistics background, who's been working very on this project quite a lot. So specifically, we're going to be trying to solve a very practical problem. Specifically, we want to see whether we can collect cases on the same topic within case law. So it can be really any topic whatsoever: labor law, family law, tenant law, and obviously we're all here, so we're going to be talking about tenant law. But the methodology that we're introducing here, it can really be expanded to any kind of topic, as long as you have some data available already. And it can also uh, very likely, at least has very high potential to be used in other courts and other languages. Um, so specifically in this work, we try to do two things. First, identify eviction-related cases within Dutch case law. So any cases that uh, are deciding whether somebody will be evicted or not, and then within those cases extract outcomes of them. So whether somebody indeed was evicted and was not. So these tasks are can be useful within themselves. You want to know, just collect the information to do any further research, but extracting outcomes of eviction-related cases can, for instance, be extremely useful to just have statistics on how many people get evicted. So to do so, we use open data from the rechtspraak, which is in the Netherlands a very big database of all published cases. It's not all published cases at all. This is not a very big sample, but nonetheless, it contains, for instance, in the 20 years between 2000 and 2020, more than 2.5 million judgments. And what we had to start with is, for the court of first instance, 591 manually annotated cases for which we knew for sure that they were eviction-related cases. And we also knew the outcomes. So these are the steps that we took to build this system. I'm going to talk about them in detail in the next slides. But we started basically by taking all of the data and then narrowing it down to only cases that at least mention eviction or words related to it. Then we did some manual inspection and looking at those cases and trying to understand how many eviction cases are in there. That we trained a machine learning system using silver labels. I'll explain what all this means later. Then we did some manual annotation, and then we tested those. So also to mention sort of what this data was, this 591 cases that we had in the beginning. We had an impression that these are the majority of cases that we have that are published in total. So that there is about 600, maybe a couple are missing, but between 2000, 2017, 19, those were the cases that were published. However, we soon found out that that's not the case. But I just want you to understand that we are sort of in this scenario operating under the assumption that the manually annotated data is practically all the data that is available in the data. So we took all the cases, all of the things that are available in rechtspraak.nl, the database of Dutch case law, took only courts of first instance, and then only took cases that contained these three words and belong to private law category, which should be the cases, the eviction case. So these words were rental agreement, eviction, and home. And we found within the 591 cases that were found that no two of these terms covered all of the cases. So we really had to have all three. So from there we got more than 24,000 cases still, which is quite a lot. So what we did at first is we narrowed down the selection just to be able to work with it more easily for 2016, 2018 cases, so those 3 years, and there was almost 5,000 cases there. These are all the cases that contain those three words and were in the private law. So what we did next is we decided to look at them. So we did 1 hour of annotation. Timon, who I mentioned before, built a simple annotation tool, basically, which would show the text of the case, and then you just had to click whether there was eviction related or non-eviction related case. And then from 69 cases that we saw, 37 were eviction related out of this random sample. So this made us understand that this 591 cases, which were not in that selection, were really not the only ones in that data set. So what we decided to do is use a so-called silver labels. So the problem in our data set is that we have the 591 cases that we know are eviction cases. But about all the other cases, we don't know whether they are eviction related or not. So basically, we have this large pool of 5,000 cases in which we really don't know what those cases are. And the way that machine learning works is that you really have to have cases from both categories in order to train a system that can predict whether another case is eviction related or not. However, we didn't have that kind of data. So what we did is we took a random sample from those cases, exactly double the amount of cases that we know that are eviction related, and assumed for a little bit that these are all non-eviction related cases. This is called silver labels. We know that that they're not perfect. Those would be golden labels, but we made an assumption that the majority of them will be non-eviction. So now we have a data set with 591 of eviction-related cases and over 1,000 cases not related. And then we trained a machine learning model using cross-validation. What does it mean? We took, I think this is threefold cross-validation. The way that machine learning works, at least in our scenario, it would take phrases within the text of those judgments, 1 to 3 words, phrases, and try to, based on those words, try to guess whether those belong more to eviction related or not to not eviction related cases. When we say that we use cross-validation, means that we took this whole data set with 591 cases and 1,182 cases altogether, then split it into 3 parts, and we would train our system on 2 of those parts and then try to test on the third part. And then once that is done, we would take 2 of the other parts and test on the first part, and so on until we trained and tested on every single case. So by doing that, we were able to see which cases the system has the most confidence in. So out of this 1,200 cases, 809 the model with 99% confidence said that these were not eviction-related cases. Of course, this is still not necessarily true, because we know for sure that in a random sample, when we trained the system, the data was noisy from the start, which means it probably produced some noisy results. But nonetheless, we got a probably cleaner data set that we had, and we use those as silver labels for the next system. So basically what we did then, we took this all this data and we wrote a simple code to try to sort the rest of the cases that we had between 2000 and 2020 into the ones that belong to eviction related or not related category. And when we did so, we found out that within those 23,000 cases, 3,277 actually were classified as eviction related. Even if it's not entirely true, again, with our system uses silver labels and we don't know how well it predicts, even then we know that there's many of the cases in there which are eviction related, which means that this 591 that we thought were the only ones available is really not true. There is a much, much larger number in the dataset that were missed. So we did some more manual annotation at this point. So initially we had 591 cases, and we did this one round before where we checked what our data set looked like with 69 cases. So now from the cases that were predicted as eviction, we asked some research assistants, as you do, to sort them out into the ones that are actually eviction and that are non-eviction. And at this point, maybe a bit naively, we still thought that the majority will be non-eviction, even though we built a system that should sort it out. Just because it really felt like there shouldn't be so many available. And we also had another round of annotation of 4 hours for cases that were predicted as non-eviction. And from those, the vast majority were indeed non-eviction. So there we ended up with this data set of the cases that now we actually do know are definitely eviction cases, 940, and definitely non-eviction cases, 436. So these would be our golden labels as opposed to silver labels that we used before. So now we were able to train our system on 672 cases. This is different from this number because we needed some cases to test on, and we also wanted to have the same amount of eviction-related cases and not related cases in our data set in order for the system to be able to learn those things equally. And then we tested on 200 cases. So basically the way it works, that this system tries to learn what words are more characteristic of one label, such as eviction related, or the other label not related, and then it's given 200 cases to try to see whether it sorts it out correctly. So I will not go, if you're not from data science or related areas, I will not go into these measures, but basically what we've seen is that we're able to predict it whether a case is eviction related with 88%. So 88 out of 100 cases were predicted correctly. And we can see exactly how well it did. And we can also see that it predicted eviction cases better than non-eviction. So basically what this table shows is that when a case was predicted as non-eviction, 19% were out of 100% of non-eviction cases. 19% were actually were predicted as eviction when it should have been non. So we can see that eviction cases are predicted much better, but those things can really be tuned depending on what you're looking for, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. So then we took the same training data set and we tried to sort the rest of the cases into the ones that are into eviction related or not eviction related, and based on our accuracy for each class, we expect that there is a bit over 3,000 cases, eviction cases available in the cases that were predicted as eviction related, and 1,500 cases that are eviction related in the set that was predicted as not eviction related. So we expect that there's this many more cases actually in the data set, but these are much easier to access than these ones using our methods. So when we've done that, when we found out we have all these cases that are eviction related, we actually want to find out whether they ended up in eviction or not. So To do so, we tried two methods. First, one might say a simpler one, a keyword-based system, and then a machine learning system. So the first one, keyword-based system, is basically what we wanted to do is just find specific words within the text of the judgment to be able to just identify how the case ends. If you've never seen a Dutch court case, it's quite free worded. It's not very structured. You expect the outcome to be towards the end, but nonetheless, there is not like a section. This is the outcome of the case. So we tried different ways of doing so. For instance, only looking at the last few sentences and last paragraph, only looking at the summary of the case, and so on. But in the end, I think this was on the entire case. And we found that if we use the words cancellation, being cancellation of the contract, eviction, and leave, that we can predict it with the 86%. So not too bad from the start. And one good thing about this system is that you don't need any data sets to train your system. You can just, as long as you can come up with good keywords to be able to extract your outcome, then you can just do it for all the cases that you've got. But unfortunately, as much as we tried, it's very hard to get a higher score. Basically, the only thing you can do is come up with better keywords. And we tried a lot of different things, and this is the best we could do. And as you can see, it also predicted a lot of things as eviction when it shouldn't have been. So basically, 103 cases that were non-eviction were predicted as eviction. So a bit better on the other label. But nonetheless, it wasn't really an ideal system. So we wanted to see whether if we use machine learning, we can do better. And I understand that this is quite a legal audience here, but these machine learning systems are actually very simple. I don't suggest that you can program them yourself, but it's not necessarily a hard task to do. This is really just a few lines of code, and as long as somebody who knows how to do that is asked to do that, you can. It's really not that complicated of a system. So the machine learning system, before that we had 912 cases that we could extract the keywords from. Here from the learning system, we could only use fewer cases because once again we had to have some cases to train on and some cases to test on, yeah, unfortunately that's the reality of it, and you want to train the system on as many cases as possible. So we got much higher scores using that, using bankruptcy and as machine learning, 92% accuracy. Yes?
Your internet is still, or again, a little bit wobbly. Could you maybe redo the previous slide?
Yes. So I'm really sorry about it. We tested it, but it seems to.
It's fine now, so I don't
know. So basically, what I was saying that with a keyword based system, you can really have all the data that you want. But for machine learning, you have to take out a lot of cases to train, which means that somebody, in our case, this were once again very helpful research assistants who had to annotate and tell us whether a case is actually were eviction or non-eviction, and we could test it on 350 cases that we had available. But nonetheless, we got a much higher accuracy compared to a keyword-based system. So 92%, which is given the fact that it's a free-worded text, and then you can actually find out whether somebody was evicted or not. This is quite a high score. And moreover, it predicts it somewhat in a balanced way. So the percentage of eviction of error for eviction cases is similar to non-eviction. So to conclude, a lot of manual work can be automated if you want to create subject-specific databases, but this automation is really not perfect. So what we try to do here is create a system that is will narrow down the data that somebody would have to go through and create more targeted manual work. So we've seen that you can annotate about 60 to 70 cases in an hour. But nonetheless, you can create much larger databases by doing this work first, by narrowing down the cases that are related to your topic, and then doing manual annotation on top of that. And this is really, again, we used eviction because this is the topic that Michelle was working on, but it can be any topic whatsoever. So I encourage you to try doing that. One thing I have to say though, that for machine learning, that means that you have to have some manual annotated data already. But no legal research people in a specific topic means that probably already did quite a lot with, and then if you have data, you now systems that can extract data for you. So that's it for me, but I'm very happy to discuss and advise and so on. So I stop sharing the screen so I can see people again.
Great, thank you. I think this is also the moment when people can turn on their camera.
Yes,
again.
yes.
Because always nicer to see faces from the people that are asking questions. So does, well, first of all, thank you, of course, for this very interesting presentation. I've heard it a lot of times, but it's still very interesting. I'm still learning new things every time you talk about this project. So it's very interesting. Is there anyone who has a question for Masha? You can virtually raise your hand. Ah, yeah, Mehmet Fait, please. Your microphone
I can't hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I just want to ask which machine learning method you use for prediction and why you use the method.
So I assume that you know something about machine learning then if you're asking this question, so I'll say technical terms. We used SVMs for this with just engrams. This is, once again, this is somewhat of a proof of concept work. So I think you can improve on how the systems predict, but you can never do it to 100%, which means that some manual annotation will always be necessary. However, yeah, so for this specific work, we used SVM.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else with a question for Masha? Yes, Walter de Vries, please go ahead.
Yes, hi, my name is Walter de Vries. I'm from the Technical University in Munich in Germany. I have a question on the data itself. I assume that the databases that you are referring to is essentially relational databases. Would it also, I'm not sure if she's still, would it also work if those data are structured in a completely different way, in graph databases or maybe even in blockchains? Or would it work in a similar fashion? Because especially keyword searches obviously don't work the same way.
So it actually works with the judgment. So all you need is, so we didn't use any relations. It's just taking the text sometime. This data set, the rechtspraak.nl, the Dutch case law data set, for it doesn't contain it for all that, but basically XML file with the text of the judgment. So that's the only. So it could be for any data set that has the text of the judgment. You can use that.
Do you have a follow-up question, or is your question answered?
Yes, it was a bit related to those keywords. I'm assuming that's a Boolean and not a Boolean or. You didn't mention that, but for the eviction, so that you have all three terms obviously included. Yeah.
So we tried all of them. So with the keyword, we really tried to get it as high as a machine learning system, and we tried Boolean and Boolean or and different combinations and include like that it would include some things but exclude the other things. And we also, what we tried to do is to go back look at what machine learning systems used as the most important features and try to use those in the keyword search. We really tried as many things as possible there, because ideally that would be a better system than machine learning. Machine learning is, if you can avoid it, you should always try to avoid it. But in this situation, this is turned out to be just where you have one of those three words, and you would get already 86% accuracy. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, interesting presentation. Yeah.
Anyone else with a question? You could virtually raise your hands. You could also, of course, use the chat function. Otherwise, I have a question if no one else has one. I was wondering, Masha, you of course are a pioneer in this field, but there are also other people working in this field. Do you see, well, you started 4 years ago, do you see a certain development, and can you sort of give an expectation of where you think this research field will go from here?
So I mostly work in predicting court decisions. Here we're not trying to predict any new decisions. We just try to sort of take steps toward it. So because I can see, for instance, that in predicting court decision, it's really done for few court because there's not a lot of data sets where you have clearly. So one learning of to get a few more to be the stuff of labels.
Your internet connection is.
I switched off my camera for it.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
But yeah, so let's try this. So basically, in once again in predicting court decisions, there's not a lot of data sets that can be used for such tasks because uh, really you need to have those binary labels or a limited amount of labels. For instance, in European Court of Human Rights, we want to see whether there's a violation of human rights or no violation of human rights. But with eviction cases, you need labels like whether there is no eviction, and not a lot of courts judge like that. So it can be a court of appeal, a Supreme Court can say, okay, I agree with the decisions of a lower court, or I disagree with it. So those courts can be used. But for more general case law, there's not a lot of data because you're really trying to, if you take all of court of first instance, there's all kinds of labels. Somebody got evicted, somebody got convicted, somebody got fined, so like for all kinds of different reasons. So, but if you start using methods that I suggest was suggested in this paper, that you can really narrow down the topic, and then within that you can, for instance, do predicting court decision. So, and in that sense, I think there's so much hype behind the topic of predicting court decisions that everybody is really trying to just use the data that is already available and not put like years of effort into collected specific data sets. And most of the people who do predicting court decisions are not actually lawyers. So it's here we really try to solve a very practical task of just simplifying the life of a legal research department and like sort of using the resources of research assistants, for instance, in a more targeted and a more and just in a better way, right? So I hope that more and more research like this will be appearing that is just solely for improving legal research. I think EVICT is one of those projects because hiring data scientists generally helps doing this kind of research. If they are hired in the law department instead of different people in natural language processing doing work on legal data sets that they might not always understand. So I'm hopeful, but of course, there's so many different things to do in the legal domain and automation of legal domain because it's I feel like a little bit behind a lot of other disciplines, and but yeah, I hope that more work like that will come up.
Yeah, so as long as the judges stay human and we don't have robot judges, it's impossible to.
I will fight against it.
Anyone else with a question for Masha? No questions? Then, Masha, I want to thank you very much for this very interesting presentation and also for this, well, not prediction of court decisions, but prediction of the future of this research field. And I hope that, well, of course, this EVICT project is a step in the right direction for that. And that there will be more, well, collaborations between data science researchers and legal researchers. Thanks everyone for showing up, and please don't forget to take a look at our website eviction.eu. We have a lot more other talks coming up, all very interesting and all about housing law, housing rights and evictions. So don't miss out. And thanks everyone again for showing up.
Thanks you for having me as well. It was really nice.
Thanks so much, Masha. Great to see everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. That was fascinating.